Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, here in New York City, day 2 of 10th Cloud Expo New York. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, if you're following this live through the SYS-CON TV feed out there on the World Wide Web. Incredible to see so many people wanting to think and talk about cloud this early in the morning on a hot New York day. So, we need to honor your presence and first introduce our 2 panelists, starting with Karen Padir, who's EVP of Products and Engineering for EnterpriseDB. Karen, good morning.
Good morning, thank you.
And we also have Aaron Hollobaugh. He's going to tell me if I've pronounced it correctly, VP of Marketing Communication at Hostway. Did I get it right now?
Very close. It's Ba.
In other words, no. You've got it.
Almost.
You got it wrong. But he's a marketeer, so he knows how to gild the lily. Yeah. So, what we do on an early morning panel is, 1, we thank you for coming because it's a miracle. We thank our poor panelists for coming because that's a secondary miracle. And Karen, I was interviewing last night, and she was saying, Jeremy, it's 7:30 in the morning. I said, cloud knows no boundaries. Here's the question for you both. In your respective businesses, when was it, can you remember, think back, when was it that you first heard the term cloud, like everyone in the audience, heard the term cloud, and went, oh, hang on, that's going to fit right in, it's going to affect EnterpriseDB, it's going to affect Hostway. Do you remember the moment? Like, was it a solitary moment or a corporate moment? See if you can remember.
So I'll start. It wasn't at EnterpriseDB. It was actually a long time ago. I want to think back. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I spent 16 years at Sun Microsystems, and Scott McNealy was always talking about, things that had to do with the network. Our tagline was "the network was the computer," and I was one of the founders of the J2EE platform at the Java group at Sun. And so back then, they were doing these things called these, Java stations and these Java desktops. And this was really, a lot of it was really just Scott McNealy's idea, and he was talking about it, and that was probably the earliest notions of everything's going to live in a cloud, and you're going to walk around with your badge, and you're going to stick it into, really a dummy terminal, and your workstation and everything would come up there. And so thinking about how to develop, so my background is, middleware and developing middleware, now database. How that affects all the applications is something that, as we all know now, and we're here, it's very complicated. And until there was, this base infrastructure that Amazon provided and made it real, that we could all touch and feel. And now we're seeing, lots of cloud providers, and then lots of infrastructure platforms like CloudStack and OpenStack, and all the compute standards are making it a reality. So,
Aaron?
I'm a bit of a late bloomer, so I can actually tell you the exact date. It was March 17th, 2008. And wow. The reason why I can tell you the date is because it was my first day on the job with a large hosting company, and I was told by the CEO that my job was to launch a cloud solution for the company, and I had no idea what the heck a cloud was. I'm not sure, 8 months later, or actually it was about 6 months later, in September, at VMworld, I launched a cloud solution. And I'm not sure that I still knew what it actually was, but I became acutely aware why what I had just launched wasn't a cloud at VMworld that year from everyone that told me what it wasn't, what it should have been, and what mine wasn't. So it was 4 years ago, and it was ever since then, I think, especially in the hosting industry and the service provider space, it's completely changed kind of the way that we market, we message, and what we're bringing to market from a technology and development perspective as well, but 4 years ago.
Now you've pinned it so precisely, let's be equally precise. People often asking, when did cloud computing get coined, and there's all these different discussions. But my answer tends to be, I don't know if you remember it, most people can actually remember the image of it. November, so 2000 and, I want to say 7, front cover of Time, Amazon's risky bet. What a great headline for that, Amazon's risky bet. Now, that had everything going for it. 1, the riskiness, but 2, Amazon, Amazon what could possibly be risky that Amazon ever did? And all around, we're hearing about this sort of stealth IT, finding all those Amazon charges on people's cards around around the business and saying, oh, so this is going on. Do you remember, even now when you arrived and thought, so cloud is one of the destinations that we need to go, did you have a sense of it being risky, or did you think, duh, it's a no-brainer? Who knows how long, but this is obvious.
So I thought for many reasons it would be very risky. I didn't think it was risky for Amazon, though, because I felt as though they had their business model with the retail, and they needed the compute power. So, right, they had these server farms. They were collecting data about all of us and where we lived and what we bought and what we searched for, and you look for one thing and then you buy another and all the recommendations. So they had that technology. So to me, it was for them they didn't have to invest in the initial server farms just to do cloud. Now when Sun, we built this huge data center in Las Vegas to build out the cloud, and I thought this was incredibly risky for us, because we were going through that kind of turnaround type time where we were trying to regrow our business, and Sun had all kind of issues, and we know where Sun is happy with Oracle now. But I do think there was a lot of risk for the other vendors, but I didn't particularly think it was risky for Amazon.
I think we definitely viewed it as a risk. And the reason why we did internally was because it was kind of our industry coming full circle, an evolution of our industry, and ending up right back where it started, which was in shared multi-tenant environments. And we had moved away from that purposefully. We had moved to dedicated servers, virtual private servers, co-location even as a solution. And we were all adding these solutions, and all of a sudden let's go back to where we begun, which was in multi-tenancy. And so there was definitely a risk there. There was a fear of how would we support it? Were there the business cases there, and would customers purchase it again? And based on the advances in virtualization, the answer was yes. But at that time, we really didn't know for sure. We were kind of taking a gamble, as we all did, as we kind of picked a virtualization hypervisor technology, and we went with it, and that was a risk in itself. And so I think that it was definitely risky for all of us within the space, and I think we all saw the opportunity there, and for us too, in complete transparency, it was also a way for us to operate our own businesses more cost effectively and provide a higher level of service and redundancy and availability to our customers. But we didn't know for sure whenever we first went down that path.
Well, to tie the two answers together, put up your hands if you were ever at first Cloud Expo. Anybody here such a diehard they were at first, or maybe second? Okay. Well, we had the CTO of Amazon opened the keynote for both of those. And so the backstory is, yes, absolutely, you're absolutely right. They were already doing it, and then Werner Vogels goes, you know what, this could monetize. I mean, we've developed elasticity. He just ripped out their way of doing IT and turned to the way that we now know, and then realized that maybe there was a business in it. And what a growthful business that proved to be. So next one then is a business question. This, please answer now again, wear your company hat. The most exciting thing for you, Karen, sitting here at Cloud Expo, as we talked last night, databases in the cloud. Wow, that could be colossal. So tell us what the future holds for that, because this is just the beginning of the story, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so we just launched our Postgres Plus cloud database. And so EnterpriseDB, for those of you that may not be familiar with us, we make commercial distributions of the open source community PostgreSQL, which is a relational database. It's a very vibrant community. We employ committers. We are active members of the community. We provide services and support for the community open source, but we also have some proprietary value-added features in terms of Oracle database compatibility. So if you have your application and you're running it on an Oracle database, you can migrate it over to Postgres Plus Advanced Server very, very simply and easily. And we have all kinds of tools that help you to do that. And of course, it's a fraction of the cost because it's based on an open source technology. Why we're here at Cloud is we launched our cloud database. And what that is it does a number of things. One, it takes all the administration out of launching a database. So in the database world, it's hard to set up a database server with replication and connection pooling and high availability and automatic scaling so that if you run out of disk space, what do you do? So we have bundled that up into a nice database service, very easy point and click, and you start your database clusters. It's infinite capacity, so it scales with you. It just starts up new machine instances. So it's kind of nice, in the cloud. It's really taking advantage of this infinite compute resources. I gave a chat yesterday about the issues and things about porting to the cloud that made it difficult. One of them is if you have something that's infinite capacity and you're taking advantage of all of these resources that Amazon and other platforms are willing to give you, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So you have to kind of be careful.
Who would be a typical customer sitting in the audience? Who's a typical someone who's not using EnterpriseDB in the cloud who should be?
I think anybody, really. So we're seeing our early adopter customers are basically web storing, web applications. We have a number of brand name customers that are using our cloud. And it just, we talked to the CTOs and the folks that have chosen to use our technology, and they basically said it's because you just make the database simple. And it's the fastest way for them to get to the cloud. Because as you look at going to a different platform, there are lots of issues that I'm sure all of you guys go through when you're taking your on-premise application and putting it into the cloud. You have to worry about the infrastructure. You have to worry about the platform, and then the database choices. And are you going to switch and do a NoSQL database? Or are you going to use MySQL, but the flavor on the cloud of MySQL isn't exactly the same as the thing you downloaded and are using in your data center? So what we provide is a database engine choice. So you can choose, and it's not a fork of these databases. It is exactly the same. So you can use all the tools that you use on-premise with your data in our cloud, and vice versa. So you're not locked in. You can go and try on Amazon and then move. We're also available on HP Compute Cloud. You can move over there. We'll soon be available on CloudStack and others. So you can just move back and forth between the clouds very easily.
Aaron, similar thing, from a Hostway point of view, the most exciting thing about the arrival of the cloud, and that you are here at the show, must be significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of dual-pronged. I think the first piece of it is that we're having conversations with those other people in this room. And I think that's a big change from where we were as a service provider in the hosting space or infrastructure space over the last 10 years. For the first time, we're no longer being seen as a replacement. We're actually being seen as an augmentation of what people are using for their internal compute resources and their own infrastructure demands and needs. As a side to that, and back to EnterpriseDB and other companies, is what is exciting for us is to see the use cases that are still being developed for cloud technologies. It's no longer a web front end or a test and dev environment. We're really seeing database intensive and mission critical applications being launched into a cloud. Or at the end of the day, what we do as a provider really isn't that interesting or flashy. It's kind of it's infrastructure. So, but what our clients build on top of it is innovative and exciting. So for us to see what's actually happening, seeing traditional ISVs move from the traditional service software model to a SaaS model on our technology and our platform, and to be able to tie into our API and to instantly scale and build the same management portal and interface basically between their infrastructure and ours, and manage it through a single pane of glass. That's exciting for us, and to see people be able to just find new use cases for cloud. We're still learning what the cloud can be used for based on what our clients are using it for. So that interaction is exciting for us.
Well, extension of that then, go now from the corporate to the personal. What do you use the cloud for, irrespective of your work? Karen, where does the cloud interface Karen Padir's life and has changed it?
Well, I think probably the most common is sharing contact information and documents and music and movies. And I love to tell the story about my father, who when I first, my father was a salesperson, ran a lot of the sales at Digital Equipment. I'm from Boston, so sorry, I forgot. I'm in New York. I'm always in California. So anyway, so my father was at Digital, and I got my first job at Stratus Computer, and we got our email on the internet. So this was in 1990, and internet email was like, you know, was amazing, really excited. You could do email within your company, but not to do it through the internet. And I remember, you know, I was so excited. I sent my dad an email, and his secretary calls me, says, "I have your father." And I said, "Okay, why? You know, what'd I do?" So he calls me and says, "I'm responding to your email." And I'm like, "Dad, that's not how it works. You don't get it." So, you know, fast forward, not even 10 years, he comes to me with this device, and it was a BlackBerry, and he's like, "You got to show me how to do my email on this thing." So, you know, just the way that technology has changed, you know, all of us, from our, you know, my 70-year-old father to my kids, who, you know, I don't think they've ever read a manual. I don't think they'll ever assume that everything's going to be on the box that they're carrying around, because they don't care. They go from computer to, you know, their iPhone to their iPad to whatever device.
And then straight into a business wanting to do the same.
Exactly.
And we all know the problem sets there. Aaron?
Actually, my cloud went down yesterday at the Cloud Expo convention center in the men's restroom in the sink. I realized how important my cloud was and how important it was. Yeah.
At least it was the sink.
It was the sink. And it's still recovering.
Way too much information, but
it's still
recovering.
But nonetheless, for me, in my personal life, it's the instant access to information, whether it be music, videos, contacts, documents, et cetera. Being able to get that on my iPad, my iPhone, my computer, my mother's computer, wherever I may be, is how the cloud is really impacting my personal life and everyone else's. It's really through the media that I'm using, whether it be video, music, et cetera, which is also driving a lot of the storage needs in the space as well. But for me personally, that's where it interacts with my life daily.
At what point, Karen, does it cease to be useful to use cloud as a term?
As a term?
As a term.
Yeah.
When will it just fade?
I think we're getting close to that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think, like, I look at my kids, and, you know, they're not thinking of it as a cloud.
Okay, let me just try that out. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 11th Expo.
Yeah, well, I think for technology and
I'm screwed.
No. I think for us, you know, vendors and users and consumers of business of the cloud, that term's going to be around for a really long time. But I do think for the, you know, this younger generation coming up, the notion that it's going to exist in a cloud, that's going to be the default. Right.
Duh. You know, what then? Let's just do a quick survey. Anyone experiencing, I shouldn't be asking this at Cloud Expo, anyone experiencing major cloud fatigue? No, you see? We're just early. Wait, no. Not a single one? Excellent. Years to go yet. No, I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking more in the longer term. Lots of legs then yet in cloud. Now, let me ask this. You talked about your children, right? They are going to work. I just want to explore that a little bit more. They're going into work. I mean, I've got kids, more kids than you can shake a stick at. And the thought of them in major businesses with some of the habits that they've brought from their personal lives just scares the bejesus out of me. How is that actually playing out in real businesses, this idea of bring your own device? Where are we on that? Is it good? Is it bad? Obviously, it's coming, so what do we do? What are people doing, Aaron?
I think it's good. I think that the people are more connected and more collaborative today than they've ever been. And as a result of that, do I myself sometimes walk over to certain areas of our team and see everyone up on Facebook in the middle of the day? Absolutely. But at the same time, too, they're also on the pulse of what's going on with their friends, their colleagues, their professional. I'm almost making a justification for why I should be on Facebook all the time, too. But I do actually think, though, that it's a good thing. The more connected and collaborative we become, the better our ideas become, and ultimately, the better our execution of those ideas become. So I think, in grand scheme of things, it's good. I've got an 18-year-old niece that lives with me who I just learned this week the word twatching, which means she Twitter watches people. You watch people on Twitter, but you don't follow them. She does it for about 8 hours a day.
That's a lot of torching.
Yeah, exactly. Nonetheless, though, I think that there's definitely some overkill for the younger generation, and where they're doing a little bit too much, spending a little bit too much time on it. But I honestly believe that the more connected and collaborative we become, the better we'll become in general at technology, at innovation, and anything that we do.
And this is a question about questions. What is the single most, not that it's awkward, but the most disappointing question that anyone asks you when you're perhaps wearing your corporate hat, your cloud computing hat, and somebody asks you a question that makes you think, wow, this is like the wrong place to start. Is there a terrible, terrible question to ask?
To ask about cloud, or?
Yeah. Someone who totally doesn't get it.
Well, I do think, technology companies and technologists reinvent themselves all the time. And so I guess, maybe one of the questions that I got was, why are you on HP Cloud? Like, HP Cloud, why would they even be successful at this? And we're on HP Cloud for two reasons. One, they're a very good partner for EnterpriseDB, but also because if you look at their company and what they do well in terms of technology innovation, and then their EDS acquisition with professional services, they're trying to build the enterprise cloud. Right? So I think if they're successful and they have the resources to do it, they will be wildly successful for those businesses that want to run their transactional data in a cloud, right? So EDS at HP is already managing, tons and tons of mission critical transactional data, and they're managing the whole thing. So why not have them do it on a cloud, and why wouldn't that be successful? And actually, it may be way more successful for that environment than Amazon, right? If you read the Amazon fine print, there's no service level agreement about, guaranteed uptimes or anything like that. So I think, for me, that was one. It's like, let's let people innovate and not get held back by whatever brand stereotype. That's not to say that, we shouldn't be introspective and look at where different companies' weaknesses and strengths are, and help them work on it. So that's one. And then I think maybe the other one is about why people do still ask why a cloud. And I think they're mixing the notion, because now new companies, how many of you guys use Google Mail?
Most everyone.
Most everyone.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, you didn't. You set up a server, you hired a hosting company, and you set up a mail server in the hosting company.
You can still do that.
And so I think, it's shifting. This notion of what things have to be in our traditional data center are shifting, and I think we have to be, open-minded to that, to do it in another way, because otherwise we're going to be left behind.
Aaron?
I don't know that any question is actually a bad question or an annoying question.
No such.
Yeah, especially as we're still growing the industry and learning ourselves, and we know that our consumers are still learning. I think, one of the questions though that is just kind of rhetorical for me is whenever people are like, is your cloud scalable? Well, it wouldn't be a cloud if it wasn't. And the other thing too that we've got to do a better job of as an industry and our partners and everyone that we're working with, and the people that are using the technologies, is better defining the security parameters that are available and that are growing within the cloud. And is your cloud secure is a question that you're going to get over and over. You're going to get it internally if you're running your own internal private cloud, or you're using an external cloud provider. It's one of those questions where absolutely, it's just as secure as what you were using 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and more secure than what you were using 10 years ago.
Right. Who heard Gus Hunt, who heard the CTO of the Central Intelligence Agency yesterday? Did he not say, the joy of the cloud, more secure in so many different ways, and he speaks very fast, so he then enumerated all the different ways in which, and there he is. He's the CTO of the CIA, so that's a pretty interesting use case from that perspective.
Ask him for a quote for some collateral. I'm just kidding.
He really is a salesman. Yeah. We're just trying to warm up this audience for the day to come. So I know you're all speaking, you're all part of it. At a trade show, this is really what it is, at a trade show, what real hope is there? Is it really still something worth having? Are there going to be amazing things that happen today that couldn't happen any other way? Or should the whole thing go virtual? There's still value, Karen?
Oh, absolutely. And I think Aaron was talking about it, right? About the people here and the interactions that you have. And I think, with the technology, you were talking about Facebook, and instant messaging is a huge thing. We use it all the time. Our developers use it, and it allows us to be more geographically distributed. And you can be really productive and successful in your work by, being geographically distributed and using the technology to stay connected. But that doesn't mean that it's still not beneficial in many ways for people to get together face to face and have a conversation and, have a beer or a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, whatever. And I think that trade shows really provide that. You'll make a connection because in the virtual world and in the cloud world, as you're connecting with people, you have to know them. You have to somehow be introduced, like look at LinkedIn or things like that. You somehow have to make that connection. Whereas if you're at a trade show, you can just walk up to somebody you don't even know and strike a conversation. And so I think trade shows are a good thing. I don't think you have to worry.
Yeah, I wasn't worrying. I was just thinking, thinking out loud. Aaron?
He's thinking of that awful idea of moving it to a virtual trade show.
No, really not.
So as a marketer, we like to think that our webinars, our videos, our demos, our virtual trade shows, they mean something. And they do mean something, but they mean less. And the reason why they mean less is because at the end of the day, people learn best from other people. And so the personal interactions that you can have here that you can't have through any other media that marketers or advertisers have infused into our daily lives, at the end of the day, I'm here to learn from people, just the same as I hope my team is here to learn from people, and the rest of our organization is here to learn from other people we'll meet here.
Put up your hands if you agree that there's still hope for cloud expos and any other expos. Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't be here. That's a good thought. No, there's more hands than there are people. Someone put up 2. Thank you so much, sir. To round it up then, so all this hope, and there comes all this cloud, what is the one thing that it hasn't addressed yet, Karen, that you just know it's going to, and we're not there yet? What area of life has not yet become touched by the cloud? There might be an impossible question. You might say there is no such thing.
So I was thinking of it in a different way. I was thinking about in terms of technology and what are kind of the gaps of things that are in the cloud.
Same idea.
I can't. Let's see. I think the things that are happening, we're seeing it now, especially like with the OpenStack group. I think, and you and I were talking about this last night, that open source. I've been a passionate open source supporter for many, many years now, and I remember I was on a panel probably in 2008. Somebody asked, "Oh, we want to do an open source and cloud topic," and I said, well, why would you do that? Because the cloud is really about offering up services to the user. The user should care less if this is open source technology behind it. And if you fast forward all these years, you go, okay, wait a minute, now that there are all these clouds around, as a user, I care deeply if there's open source technology because I don't want to be locked into one particular cloud. And so I think, I worry that there may be too many open standards around cloud computing platforms. And we should probably rally around and support 1 or 2.
But we've seen that before, and we probably will. The timescale, more debatable. But we will, right?
But the decisions and the money is being spent today. So it's and as we're a small venture-backed startup, so we got to make bets. We got to choose. And so I think the small companies are going to have to choose, and they're going to have to choose with the volume, and you wouldn't want to have chosen, I don't know, a few years ago on a technology that doesn't exist today, right? So it's that continual battle, I guess.
Right. Aaron?
Yeah. For me, it's touching most things from what we see, but I think the area where there's still opportunity for great improvement is something that's been touched on here quite a bit just yesterday and will continue to be over the next couple of days is the proliferation of APIs and how those work within creating a single management interface, if you will, for companies, and eventually applications that run independently from one another within a cloud and have their own resources tied to them. I think over time those applications rely on business intelligence and are more are connected to one another and are dynamic based on the use and the needs of the other applications that it's running with. And I think the API surface that's starting to be created is somewhere where the cloud hasn't quite went yet, but it's getting there quickly.
What's interesting to me is in both cases, you choose a gap and then already you talk about how much is going on to plug that gap. That's very reassuring, actually.
So we're not really visionaries then, is what you're saying.
No, absolutely not. The gaps are plugged. My one was going to be something entirely personal, cloud parenting. Cloud parent, I'm waiting for that. I don't know how it's going to manifest itself, but I'm waiting for cloud. It's got to be cheaper than the real thing. That's all I'm thinking. We have, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. My wife may be watching the stream. Sorry, Diane. We have another session coming up. In this room, there are 8 other sessions. There's so many things going on, and I can't possibly recommend, but I can tell you that the CIO of the National Reconnaissance Office is here. So if you enjoyed Gus Hunt's story, Jill used to be CIA, who's now NRO. But let us, before that, thank Karen Padir from EnterpriseDB, Aaron from Hostway, and the day has begun. Yep. And we thank you, the audience. One bit of housekeeping. There was all this talk yesterday. What is the wireless code for this conference? So you go to, I mean, surely by now one's found it. Javits with that little lowercase pops up as a network. And then the username is Cloud Expo. I think it's lowercase, one word. And the password is our wireless sponsors, SoftLayer, lowercase. So it's the Javits portal, and then it's Cloud Expo, username, password, SoftLayer. SoftLayer. Oh, I better enunciate. Karen couldn't hear it, so I'll say it again. SoftLayer, one word. Thanks again, everyone.